Good morning. Actually, good afternoon. I'm Margaret Christ. I was recently appointed as the new director of the J.M. Tull School of Accounting at the Terry College. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Terry Executive Education Center and our MBA Lunch and Learn. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you. We are thrilled to have George Azih as our third ever speaker for our MBA Lunch and Learn. George was a BBA from 2003 and is a nationally recognized authority on lease accounting and the founder of FinQuery, formerly LeaseQuery, one of the fastest growing financial services companies in Georgia. George began his career auditing banks, insurance companies, and brokerage firms before founding FinQuery in 2011. Prior to that, he worked at a Fortune 500 company specializing in lease accounting, sale-leaseback transactions, build-to-suit arrangements, and debt restructurings. He also served as a senior auditor at a CPA firm focusing on audits for financial institutions. George is an active member of the AICPA and the Georgia Society of CPAs. He's led numerous continuing education courses on lease accounting and related technologies for organizations such as the IMA, the FEI, the TAG, and the AFWA. Please join me in welcoming alumnus George Azih to the podium.
Thank you very much. That actually is me, right? This beard is not, I'm not about to go into a witness protection program. It was a COVID thing that I never reverted back to. So thank you so much, Dr. Chris, for that kind introduction. Thank you all for being here today. And I'm honored to be speaking to my fellow alumni. So today, I'm going to talk to you about my journey, right, in building FinQuery now, formerly LeaseQuery. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about who we are, right? What we do, why we exist. I'll talk a little bit about my education. So we'll start from where we are, and then we'll go back and talk about the journey. Talk to you about my work experience. How did I get here? And we'll vacillate back and forth between the lessons learned and the work experience. And finally, we'll have some questions. Please don't give me any hard ones. All right? So let's go ahead and start, right? About FinQuery. Who are we? So excuse me if I say LeaseQuery, right? Because this is recent. Who are we? Why do we exist? We help companies manage their largest areas of spend, right? What does that mean? The vast majority of companies out there, not everyone, but the vast majorities, they're a big area of spend, a massive area of spend is their people, right? Their employees, their coworkers, the people they pay, right? Either tied for second or first is their spend, right? Their stuff, right? What does that mean? The things they own, the things they lease, and the things they subscribe to, right? We help companies manage their stuff. How do we do that? We have three main products. LeaseQuery, which is our flagship product that helps companies manage their leased assets. Whenever some people hear leased assets, they think real estate. Companies lease a lot more than real estate. They lease vehicles, planes, equipment, rail cars, towers, right? Cell phone towers. So name it, whatever asset that exists, there's a company out there that leases it. We help companies manage those leases. Our second product is called FSM, right? FinQuery Software Management. What is that? That is a tool that helps companies manage their software subscriptions. Let me tell you the story behind FSM. Just don't tell anybody, all right? I wanted Super Bowl tickets, right? And being an accountant, I didn't want to pay for them. So I asked the controller, can you send me a list of our top 5 vendors, right? So I could go poach these tickets from them. Well, it took him 3 days to get me that information. 3 days. And when he sent me that information, I looked, I'm like, you mean to tell me that we are paying Salesforce over $1 million a year? That's insane. You know what? That's surprising. I want to know what else we have. Give me a list of all our software vendors. 2 weeks it took him. 2 weeks. And we're a tech company. So I said, we got to solve this. Let's go find a solution to this where it doesn't take as much time to get this information. And we found a small company called StackShine, right? We evaluated a bunch of companies. With StackShine, we said, okay, let's use this product and see how it works. Literally, it took about 48 hours to get integrated into our system. And one of the things they told us was, hey, you guys have 200 employees on Zoom paid accounts, premium accounts in Zoom. Of these 200 employees, 60 of them have not set a meeting in 6 months. I said, we got to buy this company. And that's what we did, right? We acquired the company, we made the technology even better, and we rebranded it as FSM, FinQuery Software Management, right? Third product we have is FCM. That stands for FinQuery Contract Management. Story behind that. So just to tell you what it is, it helps companies manage all their contracts. Every single contract they have. You can put into the system, and you can set up an accrual, you can set up a prepaid depending on the timing of your payments, and you can literally forecast. So the story behind that is we invested in AI, right? We invested in AI to help companies, to help our people. We were trying to, every product we have has been trying to solve our problem, right? I'll tell you the story about LeaseQuery in a minute, but every single product we have has been trying to solve a problem that we had, right? The problem we had with leases, entering leases into the system, is it took a lot of time. We had an entire department that was focused on getting leases into the system. So companies, our clients, would pay us to enter the leases into the system for them. And I said, we have to be a lot more efficient with this, right? Wouldn't it be great if we had a product? Wouldn't it be great if we had a product that could actually read these leases, OCR, and pull this pertinent information from them, right? And so that's why they say it's better to be lucky than good, right? Because in 2021, we decided, okay, let's start building this thing. So we started working on AI before anyone did, right? And so we are leaps and bounds ahead of the competition when it comes to our AI use. Because once again, we were trying to solve a problem and make things more efficient, all right? So because we figured out that leases are technically a type of contract, a complex contract, but a contract nonetheless. If we can do this with 98% accuracy, that's what we have right now, 93% accuracy with leases, which are very complex. We have a 98% accuracy with contracts, right? So we help companies manage their largest areas of expense. We're based in Atlanta, Georgia. We have about 300 employees. And our valuation is about $500 million right now. So that's where we are. This is how it began, right? Education. I moved to this country in 1996 from Nigeria, and I attended Norcross High School. And yeah, based in Norcross. I think we have one fan. In 1999, I attended UGA. My story with UGA is pretty interesting. Right? Why did I attend the University of Georgia? In 1996, my dad came to the United States to watch the Olympics. And something happened in 1996 that was pretty much record-breaking, right? Nigeria won its first gold medal, and it won its first gold medal in soccer. My dad attended that game, and that game was played in Sanford Stadium at the University of Georgia. So my dad came back home, and he said, everybody gather around, right? We are moving the whole family, and we are going to America. And George, you're my firstborn son. You're going to attend the University of Georgia. I kid you not. This is a true story. That's literally how I ended up at Georgia, right? So UGA was fundamental to my development. Not only did it give me a world-class education with professors like Dr. Ayers and Dr. Smith, but it's where I met two critical members of my team. Chris Ramsey, who started off as our CRO, Chief Revenue Officer, and is now our CSO, Chief Strategy Officer. and Andrew Jones, who's our chief legal officer, right? 2 critical members of our team. From UGA, I went to work at a company, a firm called Porter Cato Moore, now Wipfli, right? At Porter Cato Moore, I learned so much. What happened, the first day, they give you your laptop. And the next day, you go to the field. Some people say it's like pushing you off a boat to see if you can swim. I say it's more akin to pushing you off a cliff and seeing if you can fly. I learned a ton. Specifically, I learned a ton from this individual, Patrick Kim, another UGA grad, right? Patrick was one of the smartest and yet most direct people I have ever met, right? He was my manager, and he taught me a lot. One of the things he taught me, once I gave him a set of financials that did not foot, right? And by foot, I mean, I don't know how many accountants are in the room, but they did not add up, right? And he was livid. He pulled me into his office, and he said, George, as accountants, our clients see us every day, see us in the office, and these small set of financials, that's our final end product. If the numbers do not add up, then we have failed woefully, and we have lost credibility. And credibility is the one thing that accountants need to sell, right? So he gave me a book, not a book, like a couple of pages with numbers to foot. Imagine if someone gave you the yellow pages and said, add up all these numbers in these, from these pages. Imagine how hard that was, right? It wasn't exactly what he did, but that's the way I interpreted it. But it took me a while, But ever since then, I have never, ever made, and when I say never, ever, I mean never, ever. I triple foot, quadruple foot. Like when I say foot, I mean add, right? I add numbers. I have a calculator. Everyone always comes to whenever they come to my house, in my kitchen, there's a 10 key, right? A calculator for me. There's a 10 key in my kitchen. There's a 10 key in my bedroom. There's a 10 key in my living room. And there's a 10 key in every single conference room in my office. And when people come to the office, when we hire new people, we give them a 10 key, even though they're not accountants, because we have to show them the sense of accuracy. Accuracy. So I learned that from Patrick. So what are the lessons learned? As I said, the importance of accuracy, right? Secondly, don't take things personally. As I said, Patrick was a very direct person, right? After he gave me that exercise, he came over and was like, hey, George, you want to go grab a beer? No. Right? But he did that often enough. He would give me feedback, and he would come back and say, let's go grab a beer. So I understood that this is not personal, right? Sometimes the uncomfortable is necessary. So it's funny, we're great friends, obviously. He was actually going to be here, but he's with his daughter. And, we were having a conversation, and he was like, feedback is neither negative or positive, right? What is negative or positive is how you react to it. So that's a very important lesson I learned from this gentleman. Okay. Now, while you'll notice that some of these interchange, the dates are not exactly, aligned, right? It's not exactly, what's the word? It's not exactly chronological. While working at PKM, my brother decided to start a company called College Medium, right? That's my brother. He went to Georgia Tech. But he finally wised up and came to UGA Law School. So he's now a patent attorney, right? So Emmanuel decided to start this company, College Medium. What College Medium was, I learned a lot from this company, right? I'll tell you, it failed, and I'll tell you why in a second, and I'll tell you the lessons I learned. But I like to, my mindset is, I never lose, right? I either win or I learn, right? So you'll see, and this is all kind of tied together. You'll see exactly what I mean by that. So College Medium was a way we wanted to digitize those the boards, the bulletin boards you see on student campuses, right? Basically, they say roommate wanted, textbook wanted, all those bulletin boards. We wanted to digitize that, right? And the idea was anyone could post, right? Anyone could post, but only college students could respond. So we needed to figure out a way to make sure to discern between a college student and anyone else. What we did at first was we used a .edu address, right? If you had a .edu address, we could safely assume you were a college student. Not exactly accurate, but accurate enough, right? But then a small company out there called thefacebook.com, right, at the same time decided that they were going to expand. I don't know if you recall this, but Facebook was just for college students to begin with. And then they said, let's expand into non-college students. And as part of that transition, they released an API that would let developers know. I don't know why I'm pointing to myself as a developer, not a developer, but they would let college students know, they would let developers know if someone was a college student or not, right? So they released this API. And we used it. We built our platform on their API, right? And so what was interesting is Facebook would come in and they would spend literally 3 minutes, 4 minutes, which in online time is an eternity. Every single day we would see Google Analytics, and it would say they were called thefacebook.com. It would say Facebook, thefacebook.com, 3 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, every single day. And we were excited, right? Because we're thinking, okay, Facebook is using us. All of a sudden, Facebook releases Facebook Marketplace and kills that API, effectively putting us out of business, right? What did I learn? Never depend on someone else's platform. Never build on anyone else's platform, right? When they can kill you if they choose to. Another thing I learned is marketplace businesses are hard. They're very difficult, right? The reason is every single company out there, every single company has what's called an ICP, an ideal customer profile, right? And your job is to make sure you reach that ICP as quickly as possible. You identify who they are, find out where they are, and you sell to them. With a marketplace, though, you have 2 ICPs, right? You need critical mass for that to occur. And what happens there is you have to market to buyers and sellers at the same time. That's difficult. So after that, I said, never again will I build a business that requires critical mass to succeed. Whatever I do next has to provide value to even if it's one user on the platform. I didn't realize it, but at the time, that's what software is. Over the years, I've crystallized my thinking of businesses, right? And I'm going to show you what that is right now. Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that this is the way I view the world, right? This is the way I view the world. It's neither accurate. It's just my view of the world. First, imagine if on the x-axis you have boring and sexy, y-axis you have simple and complex, right? First quadrant, simple and boring. These are things like realtor. Once again, please don't get offended, right? But this is just my view of the world. Car salesman and retail, right? The reason this is boring and simple is because there is no moat. And what I mean by a moat is there's no barrier to entry. Anyone can do it. I was once going to invest in a company that catered to realtors. They were doing well. The sales numbers, revenue is this, and it's growing, right? And then when I started doing diligence, I noticed that they had incredible churn. Because a lot of realtors, they'll say, I'm going to go become a realtor, sell houses, sell real estate, and all of a sudden they quit after a year or two. If you have a leaking bucket, you can never fill it up, right? So that's what that first quadrant is. Second quadrant, simple and sexy. These are things like athletics, music, movies, basically entertainment, right? Once again, it's sexy because it's exciting, right? But it's simple because there's no moat. Anyone can do it. Everybody can can become an Instagram model, right? Anyone can create content. Third, sexy and complex. These are things like robotic process automation, AI, crypto, and decentralized ledgers. These are things that tend to be trends, right? They're exciting, it's new. The challenge with these types of businesses is you have to raise incredible amounts of money. Incredible amounts of money. This is where I like to live. Boring and complex. This is where I call home, right? Things that are boring and complex. They're complex because you're actually solving problems, but they're boring because no one wants to do it. This is where you find companies like DocuSign. We exist to help you sign documents. Unbelievable. Boring. This is where you find companies like Calendly, another Georgia Bulldog. We exist to help you set up meetings. Boring. This is where you find us, FinQuery. We help you manage your stuff. We help you manage your leases. Could you even try to be any more boring? So once again, this is how I view the world when it comes to businesses. Right? So that's lesson learned. Next place I went to after PKM, worked at a company called Graphic Packaging International. This is an interesting one, right? Because the lessons I learned there came from a job that I did not work at, right? And I'll tell you the story. I interviewed with a company called Blue Links with a gentleman called Scott Phillips. And the interview went great. It was awesome. And I was like, I would love to work here. But the offer never came, right? And after about a week or so, I said, okay, bird in the hand, I took the offer from Graphic Packaging. And when I took that offer, 3 days later, Scott calls me and is like, I'd like you to come join us. And I go, oh my God, I just accepted an offer with Graphic Packaging. He's like, I'll give you a $10,000 signing bonus. I was like, which $10,000 was a lot of money to me then. It still is a lot of money to me now, right? But I was like, I can't do that, right? Because I'm committed to these guys. However, can you please give me some advice as someone who's moving from public to private accounting? And he goes, okay, what I'll say is own your education. And I go, what does that mean? And he goes, every company out there, especially large ones, every company out there has something that no one understands truly. Something that everyone decides like, hands off, right? We don't really get it. Go find that thing in that company and become the go-to person at that thing. Ladies and gentlemen, that was leases. That was leases. So, lessons learned. Be an expert in something hard. Second lesson learned, know your people's strengths. Now this one is interesting because it was a lesson that I learned while I was working there, but it helps me tremendously now. We had a meeting with the chief accounting officer, our auditors, the chief accounting officer, our auditors, and my boss, right? And the meeting was about leases. And at this time, I had already started working on LeaseQuery, right? I had already started doing my insane research on LeaseQuery. And as we walk out of the meeting, the chief accounting officer goes, oh my gosh, now I have to go hire a lease accountant. And I go, really? Right? Like, guys, at the time, I didn't really like lease accounting, right? I didn't love lease accounting. I wasn't passionate about lease accounting. I was obsessed with it. It was an obsession. I literally cannot tell you how many times I was sleeping and I dreamt up a scenario. And I'm like, oh my God, I wonder how this will work. Let me go find it, right? And I'll go research it and figure out that scenario, right? That was something that happened numerous times. And yet this lady, at the time, I literally like to say, there was probably 5 people on the planet who understood lease accounting better than I did. And I think I'm being generous, right? I literally knew this thing in and out. And yet this lady was telling me, announcing that she was going to go hire a lease accountant, which was just crazy to me. So now what we do, we're going to start implementing this program at LeaseQuery because of this, where we'll let our programmers just work on anything you want on Fridays. Just work on whatever it is that you want to work on, something you're interested in. That way we identify, we don't end up like this, right? We identify people and their talents, right? Because they will work on things they're interested in. All right? So after that comes FinQuery. This is where we'll spend, most of our time, right? FinQuery was started in 2010, March 2010, right? I decided to start the company in March 2010. Why was that? Well, in 2008, Graphic Packaging, the company I was working for, changed auditors. They moved from one Big Four firm to another. And the new Big Four firm said, hey, this is a first-time audit. We're going to take a deeper dive into the financials. And the financials, one of the areas they looked at was leases. And they tested the leases, and we failed woefully, right? Way below the Medusa line. And so the chief accounting officer tasked me with teaching all the different controllers, because this was a global company, all the different controllers how to account for leases. So I start preparing this PowerPoint, and I'm like, I'm a big show me rather than tell me guy, right? So I'm really good with Excel, like really good. I like to say, if I ask Excel nicely, I can get it to do my laundry, right? So I said, I'll just create this thing in Excel. So I started to create it, and then as I'm doing it, I'm like, this is really easy accounting, right? Topic 840 is essentially depreciation. There has to be software that does this. So my idea was, hey, let me just go research the software, get it, and recommend that we use it, right? Problem solved. I go and I look at everyone. Everyone did lease management, lease abstraction, but no one did lease accounting, which was the problem that we were trying to solve. So as I said, my job as you saw earlier, my job at Graphic Packaging was technical accounting, right? Technical accountant. What that meant is I had to look at what the FASB, the accounting boards, were looking at and making sure that, hey, down the line, we would get our preferred accounting treatment. So I knew that the boards were planning on changing lease accounting and making it more difficult. So I sat there and I go, hey, wait a minute. If right now it's easy, right? It's easy accounting. At the time we were an $8 billion company, right? That has this problem, and the boards are going to make it more difficult. Then by God, this is going to be a big problem, right? And why don't I solve it? So that happened, as I said, in March 2010. I decided to do this in March 2010, and the first line of code was written in September 2011. What do you think I was doing in those 18 months? Becoming an expert, writing blogs, right? I used to write for the Red and Black when I was at UGA, right? Humor columnist, it was silly stuff, right? But that helped me write blogs, right? That just increased my writing skills. So first line of code was written on September 2011, right? One of the things that happened as well when I decided to start the company was I knew I wasn't going to get any funding, right? I didn't even think about raising money. But what I did do was I maxed out my 401k. I put the most I could into my 401k. Think with the idea that I was going to actually just borrow against the terrible financial advice, by the way, right? For all the accountants, that's awful financial advice, right? I'm just telling you my story, right? So I would borrow money from my 401k, and that's how I would fund it. I would also, the first people to build, because I'm a technical founder, right? What that means is I don't code, so I had to hire people, right? So who do you hire, right? I'll give you my counsel on that. Whenever you need to build something, software, most of the time, right, most people say, let me get a partner, right? Equity is the most expensive thing you can give. So don't go that route. I can give a whole class on what I've learned about equity, right, and how to keep it, right? So don't do that. The second thing is you hire a freelancer, right? The challenge is if you're a good negotiator and you beat down prices, that freelancer is working on other projects, right? So that freelancer comes in and says, hey, you know what? You're paying me $50 an hour, right? This other company's paying me $80 an hour, and this other company's paying me $85 an hour. Where do you think you lie on that freelancer's priorities? So he's his own boss, right? You can't hold people who are their own bosses accountable. It's damn near impossible, right? So what you need to do is hire a firm, a company, because if you hire a company, you're guaranteed to have accountability, right? Because they'll provide you with a BA, business analyst, they'll provide you with an engineer, a coder, and they'll also provide you with a testing, with QA, right? So that's my advice, that's my counsel. Hire a company, because if they're not doing their jobs, you can scream at their boss, who will scream at them, right? Next thing I did was I created an advisory board. Now, I hate the idea of mentors. Right? A lot of people say, George, can you be my mentor? And I'm like, no, I don't believe in it, right? Because no one person can provide you with all you need. What you need to do is find a group of people that can plug in the holes that you have. I luckily did this very early on. This is the email that I wrote to the advisors. All of them, in one way, shape, or form, still work with us to this day. right? Chris and Andrew, as you can see, they were Chris and Andrew, sales, legal. Tommy Lee. Tommy Lee was the tax expert. Tommy Lee does our taxes to this day. Tax day was what, 3 days ago? I had a very unpleasant conversation with him. Right? So these are the people. Create an advisory board. Right? Don't look for one individual. Create an advisory board. Now, our first check came in 2013. That's from a company that owns Fresh to Order right here in Atlanta. How did I get this? This is a very interesting story. How did I get this line? Well, Tommy Lee, member of my advisory board, had seen the demos. And he goes, George, I have a client that needs your software. This client really needs your software. You should sell it to him. And I go, geez, Tommy, it's not ready. It's not ready yet. And he goes, George, it's never going to be ready. It's like having children. You're never ready, right? Just go ahead and do it. So I said, okay. I go and I give them the demo, right? I said, okay, I agreed. We set a date for the demo. Now, I had seen on either the Discovery Channel or the History Channel, I can't recall which one, but they talked about Air Force One, right? And how many times Air Force One takes off and lands, right? And yet, like millions of times, right? Think about during the election season, right? Millions of times Air Force One has taken off and landed. Yet, 0 incidents. 0. And that's because everyone on that team, from the pilot to the mechanic to the servers, understands that this is a 0-fail mission. And that was the concept that I had, right? A 0-fail mission. Because, also in 2013, I'll never forget this date, October 13, 2013, it was a Saturday, a lady that had invested in my company, right? She gave me $12,000 for 10% of the company, asked for her money back, right? My point is, I needed the cash, right? So I go in and the night before I'm prepping for the demo, 0-fail mission. And then I think about all the things that could go wrong, and I go, oh my God, what if their projector doesn't work, right? Or they don't have one. So I call my mom, who lives in Houston, because I was broke, and I was like, Mom, I need a projector for this big demo I have tomorrow. And she goes, okay. She goes to Best Buy. She pays for a projector. I come here, I go to a Best Buy in Atlanta, and I pick up the projector, figure out how to use it all night, and I take it to the meeting. Meeting's at 8 o'clock in the morning. I go to the meeting, and Carol, the controller, says, George, this is the conference room we're going to be using. It's the CEO, Carol, and another accountant. And she walks up to the equipment, and she gives this heavy sigh. And she goes, this is all brand new equipment. I've never figured out how to use the projector, and our IT guy doesn't get here until 9 a.m. And I go, I've got a projector. And the CEO looks at me and goes, you have a projector? I'm like, yes, I'm always prepared, right? And I'm pretty sure I closed that deal because of that. It was only for $500, as you can see, but I closed that deal, right? So I'm making sure we leave time for questions. So in 2015, something incredible happened. I wouldn't even call it incredible, but it was lucky in hindsight. I got sick, right? I'd been literally sleeping 4 hours a day and working literally, I don't even know how many hours. Who's counting, right? And what I had was called myasthenia gravis, right? My eyesight was, my eyes were unaligned. And at about noon, I would get these piercing headaches, these awful headaches that would just, it was awful. Imagine if you wear glasses or contacts. Imagine going a whole day without them on, right? That was what this felt like. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And so I couldn't really work, right? So I took a leave of absence, and because I needed to go visit hospitals, I went to the Palmer Institute in Miami. I finally ended up at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and that's where they diagnosed me, right? So God forbid, if you guys ever get sick, that's the place to go to. It's amazing. It's phenomenal. But anyway, what I would also do while I was there, because I know I couldn't really use a computer because of the headaches, but I could sell, and I had something to sell. So every single place I went to for healthcare, I also set demos, right? And I had to wear an eye patch because, as I said, my eyes were misaligned, And so I couldn't really see. So I would always see two images, right? And so I would take out the eye patch, because you can't go in there looking like Shaft, right? And I would take out the eye patch and go and I would see, like during a handshake, I would see two images. So I would have to close one eye so that I would really see one image to actually catch the hand, right? And people thought I was a winker, but whenever, if you see me, I mean, it happens during times of high stress, right? But, they figured it out. It's very, 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 very manageable condition. And as you can see, this is me in the hospital with my eye patch on. Still smiling, though. But my point is, why was that good? Because I literally closed every deal, every single deal. I tell my salespeople all the time, guys, I had one eye, and I'm closing deals. What are you doing? Right? So I was batting 100%. The first company that I lost, the first company was SoulCycle. I hate those guys. I take it personally. All right. So in 2016, 2017, Chris, who, as I said, was on my advisory board, joined the company full time. Right? There comes a time in every entrepreneur's life where your mind is blown, right? Where you have to think about, where you have to think, you have to expand the scope of your mind, right? I always say this, when you say, people always throw around the words million, billion, trillion, and they don't really know what the delta is, right? So I always use time to explain this concept. So how long is 1,000,000 seconds? Anybody guess? 1,000,000. Just throw it out there. Sorry to pick on you. Just throw a guess out there. Time. Is it a week? Is it a month? Is it 3 months? Is it a year?
A year.
A year. 1,000,000 seconds is 11 and a half days. Now, how long is 1,000,000,000 seconds? Just guess. Just throw a number out there. There's no right or wrong. Well, there is a right or wrong, but just guess.
6 months.
6 months. 1,000,000,000 seconds is 32 years. 11 and a half days, 32 years. That's the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire, right? Your mind has to go to that billion status. It has to happen. For me, it happened at Endeavor. I was meeting with a gentleman named David Cummings, who most of you know owns the Atlanta Tech Village. And in that meeting, we had 5 people. I had 5 employees. And we go, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to hire 5 more, right? In my mind, I'm doubling the size of the company, right? David looks at me and looks down at the financials I provided him, and he goes, George, this is stupid, right? You don't need to hire 5 people. I'm looking at your numbers. For every salesperson you hire, after 3 months, they give you 300 grand, and you paid them 70. You need to hire 50 people. And it was like a gunshot. Like, is this guy crazy? But as Chris and I are riding down the elevator, I go, because I'm an accountant, I go, these numbers actually, he's right, these numbers actually do add up. We can do this, right? And Chris goes, well, George, if we're going to hire 50 people, we're going to have to interview 300. We can't interview 300 people with what we're doing. So our employee number 6 was a full-time recruiter. Changed the trajectory of the company. Mind blown. Right? We went from $1 million to $10 million in 1 year. That's unheard of growth. Right? We won the UGA 100 fastest growth, the Bulldog 100 fastest growing company. 2 years in a row. No company has ever done that consecutively because it's the law of small numbers. Right? Mind blown. Your mind has to really blow. Every entrepreneur. You have to think big. Right? Now, in 2019, we had an investment from Goldman Sachs. I'm going to talk about this a little bit because this is the investment from Goldman Sachs was not our highest valuation, right? But we chose Goldman Sachs for a reason. I always say, don't drink the Kool-Aid, but eat your own dog food. Don't drink the Kool-Aid, but eat your own dog food. What that means is, don't drink the Kool-Aid, don't believe in the hype, right? Don't believe the hype. Because the moment you believe the hype, you've lost, right? One of our competitors had a meeting with me, and he came to a place for breakfast, and we sat down and we talked, And I casually mentioned, hey, the problem is there's lease accounting and there's lease management. And none of us have figured out how to do both well. And he goes, oh, no, we have. And I go, I don't think you heard me. Like, we do well in lease accounting. You guys do well in lease management. Like, but we have challenges. Each of us have challenges in the other. And he goes, no. We do both well. Well, this gentleman did not know that my very next meeting, was with a Fortune 100 company that was a client of theirs. We got them from him. And that's because his mindset was, oh no, we do it right. Right? If you believe your cup is full, you can't add anything else. Your job as an entrepreneur is to make your product obsolete before your competitor does. Right? So that was where he failed. So don't believe the hype, right? But drink your own Kool-Aid. But eat your own dog food. What I mean by that is see the world through the eyes of your competitors, right? No one in our company uses Apple computers because 99.9% of the people of our clients are Windows shops. Now we have some divas in marketing, UI, UX, But anyway, other than those guys, no one uses MacBooks, right? So we're selling to controllers, CFOs, people that are very conservative and don't really like change. These guys don't know anything about Vista Equity Partners. They don't know anything about Excel KKR. They don't know anything about Andreessen Horowitz, right? But they know Goldman Sachs. And they know that Goldman Sachs is not in the business of picking losers. That's why we went with them. It was another arrow in our quiver. I talked about how we used AI to make entering leases easier. That started in 2021, right? Once again, better lucky than good. And we had to rebrand to FinQuery because now we were bigger than leases. All right? Perfect, George. 10 minutes. Right? So that's 2024 and beyond. All right? So with that, let's see if we have any questions. I had a cartoon up here that, I did this really late. Where is she? I need to apologize. Yes, there you go. I need to apologize to Gracie for doing this. So my point is, I was probably not in sound mind when I put this cartoon up here. I thought it was hilarious, but I felt like it might be a little insulting. So I'm not going to show it. I'm going to just really fastly go through it. Unless you guys want to see it. Are you sure? It's hilarious.
You like boring and complex.
Oh, exactly. This is it, right? I thought it was hilarious, but all right. So, questions?
If you're going to ask a question, ask for the microphone
so
we can hear you.
Yes.
I'll ask one, and I don't think I need the microphone. I know and understand the importance of having an advisory board or directors, that kind of thing. How did you decide, or did life decide for you, the specific people that you chose?
That's an excellent question, right? That's an excellent question. And just because you know someone that does something doesn't mean they're the best people for your team, right? But if you really know them, the thing is, all these people were the best people I knew and I had access to, right? So the best salesperson I knew was Chris. So I asked him, hey, do you mind joining, right? It doesn't have to be the best in the world, right? You do that when you're trying to choose your board of directors, when you're established, right? And you're trying to choose a true board of directors. Then you go, who can't I afford to employ? And you ask them to be on your board, right? But for this early stage, for your advisors, good enough is, and once again, they're still all with me, right? So they grow too, right? So just look at your circle, your inner circle, and the best people you know in those roles, those are the best people that you have. And as far as when it comes to you should know your holes, you should know your weaknesses, right? And that should advise you on who you bring to the board. Yes. Microphone?
Yeah.
Turns out there's not.
Oh, okay. Just scream.
So, you have the comfort of insurance, salary, being confident, so to take that leap.
Great question. I always say the biggest addiction in life is a good paying job. That is the biggest addiction in life. That is what scares people to jump into entrepreneurship. Because they have a safety net. Right? You have a good paying job, you have everything you need. Why would I risk this to go and have to eat what I kill? Right? What made me confident in doing that was because I was an accountant. I knew I could always get a job in accounting, no matter what. If I go out and this fails, I could come back. I have a degree from UGA. I'm not going to go hungry. Right? That was what made that. Yes. Either of you.
Can you expand a little bit? You mentioned your relationship with Chris and Andrew. I think it's really interesting. You said you met them at UGA.
Yes.
And then you must stay in touch with them over a duration of time. Then you brought them back. To me, it's fascinating how you kind of got
Sure.
connected and now they're working as employees.
Sure. So, and I don't like to call them employees, partners, right? So the interesting thing with that is, as I said, Chris was one of the best salespeople I knew, right? And I will never forget, we go to one of our other friends' weddings. We're in Miami, and Chris had just gotten a new job, right? And he goes to the ATM at the airport. So we're all at the airport. He goes to the ATM, and he puts his card in the ATM. He goes, "Holy," I don't know if you can curse here, but he literally says that, you know? And I go, "What?" He's like, "I just got paid." And he showed me the deposit. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I should be in sales. You know, so that stuck with me. This was early. So that stuck with me. And Chris, you know, he worked at Veeam, VMware, you know, so he had all these sales jobs, right? And you know, good salespeople, they don't really brag about, you know, the best salespeople are not flashy. They don't brag. They don't, you know, they just have the gift of gab, right? They can talk to you in ways that you're like, oh my God, yes, I will buy that. Yes, you know what? Matter of fact, I think my car would run better on 3 wheels. I'll pay you to take out one of them, right? Those kinds of people, those are great salespeople. Andrew was an accountant, right? He majored in accounting. He actually he was a double major. He majored in finance and then moved to accounting. One of the finance people that moved to accounting. Got his master's in accounting and went to work at Alston Bird and then Deloitte and then Global Payments. All through, Andrew had helped me through legal, right? He was always my legal as I said, on my advisory board. He was one of the smartest attorneys I knew. So it was just, once again, it's just a function of my circle, right? I just figured this person knows this better than I do. This person knows this better than I do. You know, let's bring them on as advisors. Yes, I think he had one first.
So you said something really interesting, which was I never lose. I either win or I learn.
Yeah.
Let's say that in 2012 you were invited to eat pizza and offer advice to George. With all the knowledge that you have today, what was
In 2012.
Yeah, the big learning you had in your journey that if you could go back in time and talk to yourself in 2012, you would tell yourself.
2012, that's such an arbitrary, you know.
You may want to say 2012 for the advisor.
Oh, no, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change anything. From that point, I wouldn't change anything. But if you had asked me, you know, what would I change in 2015, it would be I would have quit my job a lot earlier. You know, when you have a side gig, right, and you have a full-time job, right, that's like having one leg in hot water and one leg in cold water and trying to convince yourself that your body's warm, right? You're doing neither well, right? Don't quit your job too early, right? Make sure you quit your job when I quit my job, I was legit depressed for 2 weeks. I was legit depressed, like, what have I done? What have I done? What have I done? But then that don't they say necessity is the mother of all inventions? Yeah. You know, I knew that to eat, I'm going to have to kill. You know, that was part of the reason I had that 20% close rate, right? And then another lesson, you know, in pricing, this is what Chris did, right? As I said, that check was for $500. Chris said, no, that check should have been for $10,000, right? And Chris says, if you never get turned away because of price, your price is too low, right? So you have to find that balance. You have to find that person. I am an emotional seller, right? I like to sell ideals and concepts. I can sell the hell out of that, but I can't really get, I'm not the one to convince people to open up their purses, right? Because I am so passionate about the product. I just want people to use it, right? Chris didn't care about the product. He just wanted to get paid, right? And you need that balance, right? Yes. I think he had one.
That's fine.
So you referenced your mother and father.
Yes.
With your mother helping with her projector and your father, coming here in '96.
Yes.
Can you speak about the impact they've had on you in your journey?
Are you trying to make me cry? My dad was he was more of a father than a dad, if that makes sense, right? He always instilled in me the value of hard work, right? If he ever came home and I was watching TV, he would always say, there's always something to do, right? What are you doing, right? My mom, on the other hand, was more, emotional. And it was interesting, I don't know how personal I can get here, but they went through a horrible, horrible divorce. And, it was terrible on my mom, right? Because she used to be a professor. And then, my dad did some things and she didn't have her papers and anything, but she came to this country and literally worked security jobs and all this and became a very, very successful. At one point, my mom was the richest person I knew, right? So, I keep telling her she needs to write a book, right? Because she went from nothing to where she is now. And where she is now, if you see her house and, it's literally, anyway, she inspires me, right? And when I say she's the smartest businesswoman I know, I come to her for advice. I really do. She doesn't, if you put a gun to my mom's head today and say, you must tell me what your son does, she's not showing up to work tomorrow. Right? She's just not. Right? But she understands business. Right? She understands business. I can tell you so many stories about that. So my point is to see her evolve from what she went through with the divorce and everything to where she is now, where she's making more than, her plan before she met my dad was to become a doctor. She's making, more than most doctors. So my point is to see her evolve through that process and to hear her talk. George, I don't spend $1 unless it's going to give me $2. Like literally, that's something that's a profound impact. I think you had one.
I don't want to ask. He asked you a good question, and mine's going to be relatively simple and boring.
That's where you want to. Actually, that's not where you want to be. Boring and complex.
So as you think about your business and the growth of the business, as one of the accountants in the room,
yes.
With the evolution of accounting pronouncements, ASC 842 and stuff, how much, if any, does that impact your business, given the model you have for helping large companies just manage their lease accounting, or does it impact it at all?
842?
Yeah.
That's what made us grow.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, 842 was like manna from heaven. Yeah. We have 8,000 clients because of 842, right? And so what our mindset was, as I said, transitioning to AI, right? We figured out, okay, what else can we sell? Because we want to go from a hunting mentality to a farming mentality, right? That's really the idea behind this. And so we've evolved. We have FSM, which is FinQuery software management, and we have FCM, which is FinQuery contract management. So we have 3 different products that we can sell, individually or in the aggregate to all our different customers. So that's the evolution, right? Lisa's 842, that was the beginning. That got us this big clientele, the population. And now all we have to do is, it's a lot easier to sell to someone you already have a relationship with. And in seeing that, we've figured out that we have to transition. So that's another thing that people need to think about, is transitioning. The people that get you from 0 to $1 million are usually not the same people that get you from $1 million to 10 million. The people that get you from 10 million are not the same people that get you to 50. You have to be able to make some tough decisions, but you have to do it with dignity, and you have to do it with grace, and you have to be fair, right? That's the key. Thank you.
Well, that concludes our program, and I think that I could probably speak for everyone, but I took a million nuggets out of that. Some great lessons learned and just things I want to write in nice handwriting and put on my wall. Don't lose, you win or learn. I mean, just wonderful. Thank you so much, George. We would like to give you this Bulldog trophy as a token of appreciation. Always good job. A little bit of housekeeping for the audience. Make sure to get your ticket validated. Check out the registration table. They can help you with that there. And then we're very excited to continue our speaker series in 2025. Make sure to take your Lunch and Learn postcards with you on your way out. And we hope to see you at our next MBA Alumni Lunch and Learn featuring Amy Odie from Chick-fil-A on January 16th, 2025. Registration is open and look forward to seeing y'all there. Thank you.